Yeah, we're here, the Bible College Library, NBCNS, one of my favorite places. And I told you we were going to try to, jump into some conversation. And so my friend Keith was out here wandering. No, he wasn't wandering the sidewalk. North Miami.
Yes.
Wow, and Pastor Kent Fires.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. How long have you been there?
So I've been there about almost 6 years.
Wow.
It started, I started when they were first starting to plant the church. Interestingly, started going. They were doing home Bible study, and I kept making excuses why Miami was too far, why I couldn't go. And about 6 years ago, my wife was pregnant with our son Josiah, our third son, and she had an asthma attack. And during that asthma attack, we rushed to the hospital. We tried as best as we could to self-medicate, couldn't, and rushed her to the hospital. It was, man, one of the most scariest things that we ever had to do. And we got there, and the doctors had to put her in induced coma.
Wow.
So it was 8 days in induced coma, and Pastor Ken and the church in Miami was traveling to the hospital, praying with me, praying for us, and it just meant so much because I wasn't attending the church at the
Isn't
time.
that something? Yeah.
And just their love, how it reached out, was just truly amazing. So after she gave birth to our son Josiah, and we felt comfortable enough to kind of leave the house, like maybe we'll be okay. There's not going to be an asthma attack again.
Wow.
We'll be fine. We ended up going to Miami, and we've been there since. So
that is a sweet story.
Yeah.
I mean, and Pastor Ken, I know he wasn't doing that to build his church.
No.
And sometimes, Keith, we think of ministry in a very narrow channel, like, this is ministry, is from me to you, and hopefully, you will reciprocate back. That's what we heard up this morning about friendships that can we minister to someone and be their friend without them giving anything back, no reciprocation. And it was mentioned how in John chapter 15, Jesus says, I call you my friends.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, wasn't that amazing?
It's a great thought, yeah. And I think that's so huge. I mean, Christ didn't need anything from his disciples. Pastor Ken obviously didn't need, more people at the church. He didn't necessarily need me, but just being a friend, being there, caring for us. I mean, at a very low moment, where, here we are at the hospital. Like, there's nothing that I'm going to naturally give to him in this time. I mean, I was in a place of receptivity, of needing to receive, and having someone that cares for you so much that he would give. I think that's what we see in Christ, right? Like,
that's right. That's what you saw. You saw Jesus Christ, and that's very attractive. More than culture, more than denomination, more than some kind of affiliation. But so now, and the beautiful things that you got a portion, you got gifts. Share with us a little bit of kind of what your background. You didn't go to Greater Grace. You didn't come to NBCNS.
One of the few, right?
No, that's fine.
No, yeah. So for myself, really didn't grow up within the church. My father, my biological father, just my parents divorced when I was very young, about third grade or somewhere around there, and she remarried about a year afterwards, and Pastor Ken, who was my uncle, was going to a church at the time, and we grew up Catholic, and he invited our family to go to this Christian non-denominational church. It wasn't Greater Grace. So we started attending there, and within a year, my stepfather passed away of cancer, and this guy wasn't perfect by no measures, but he was so much greater, morally than my biological father. I mean, just things were getting good. School, I was starting to do well. I was starting to believe in myself.
Wow.
A lot of different things there. And when he passed away, man, I just didn't know. I didn't have categories to see that God could be there, in my suffering, in the pain, and the hurt. So anyways, fast forward, 6th grade all the way to college, I really wasn't going to church at all. My mom ended up not being able to afford the home that we were staying in. We ended up moving, and when we moved, one of my best friends from my childhood, his father was delivering pizza. So we exchanged numbers. I called my best friend way back, haven't seen him. We had everything in common. But he had Christ and I didn't.
Wow.
And he kept, Jesus juking me, for lack of a better word, telling me about Christ. And I already tried that before. If that works for you, cool. But he was so persistent. He was such a great friend at that time. Eventually, I'm like, okay, I'll go to church just to shut you up. And I went, and the worship was so attractional. It was like, these people are happy. There's joy upon their face. And like, I knew that I wanted what they had, and it was just so good. So in that time, ended up really giving my heart to the Lord at that point. And shortly after that, I found myself, now, what do I do now that I'm a Christian? So I ended up going to Palm Beach Atlantic University, a Christian college. And I was just like, okay, I feel called to grow within the church, but I don't feel called to be a minister.
Right.
So I ended up studying business there, and took as much electives as I possibly could in religion.
That's cute.
Yeah, so it was just great there. Afterwards, found myself then transferring to Baki Graduate University, which was another seminary, but it was more prevalent in social justice and leadership and different areas of the sort. And I found myself going there. The school had a time where it found itself maybe not being able to provide financially. So they were, there's a semester where it's like, okay, the school may close down. And I found myself looking for a seminary, just seeing, where should I go? And there was a seminary nearby my house, Knox Theological Seminary, where I ended up, applying for and going there, and basically was founded by DJ Kenley, the Gospel Explosion, and just had remarkable pastors and teachers that were there, professors that really helped me, that were patient with me, allowed me to grow in grace. I mean, it was so funny. I remember one class, they were referencing the Pilgrim's Progress and
the book.
Yeah, the book.
Okay.
And it just went way over my head. I didn't have that. So I found myself watching the movie on YouTube, just trying to catch up,
It's a good movie, though.
It was really good, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just like great. And then, after a few years, leaped, graduated from there. And then shortly after is when I came in contact with Greater Grace.
But was that through Pastor Ken?
So I didn't get connected with Pastor Ken. I was preordained with another church in 2012. I was kind of growing within that time. And then Pastor Ken's about 6 years ago, so 2016 maybe,
Okay, yeah.
somewhere around there, where I started going with Pastor Ken. So, and then really just growing within grace, really what I found that Greater Grace provided, I think I had a lot of these doctrinal understandings, was able to wrestle through them enough through reading and being in class and stuff like that. But what I found in Greater Grace was the appliedness of the finished work. Of just seeing that finished work and how when someone covers your sin, where they love you unconditionally, where they're not, pushing you towards, out of demands or out of guilt or out of obligation, but just allowing you to grow within grace. And I mean, it was just really remarkable. The messages got in, capacity grown, hunger grown, listening to the free classes that were on Greater Grace, listening to the Grace Hour, listening to messages, just get an intake, hearing Pastor Ken talk about, hour of doctrine, get that in. So all these different things, just learning to then apply it in my own life. You know what I mean? And
well, what about, we heard it this morning about, the uniqueness of Pastor Grunwald, the glory of God being manifested. And how does that work, except that I see Christ in you in what you are growing in and what you're realizing and what you're walking in, but I don't see it in me. But you see it in me.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. And so now you're talking to me like how I don't think about myself, I don't think of myself that way, right?
Yes.
And I'm talking to you that way.
Yeah.
And suddenly, we kind of realize, you say, wow, this is the Lord.
Yeah.
Like, let the Lord be between thee and me, because we're seeing that. And so, the technical or the theological term, if we want to call it, is corporate body.
Yeah.
And that has a profound, impact on all of us and the various portions that would happen. How is it? Tell me a little bit about like when you came to the first international convention here.
Wow, that was so great. It was just mind blowing. All my upbringing in church has been predominantly small. Small churches of 60 or less. There hasn't been like a great experience. And what really shocked me was that body life that you're talking about, like seeing a church of this big and there being relationship and connection and not just connection with all the Baltimoreans. Right. You had international people from all across the globe, and there were these relationships and people were looking forward. And man, messages, the messages were so great. It was like overwhelming, at first, just to have a whole day where you're being fed, you're listening to message, and then you're rapping about it, and there's just this hunger, but you're building relationships. I remember one day, Big Chad.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Just grabbed the hold of me and say, "Hey man, we're gonna hang out over here," and just praying and him sharing stories about Dr. Stevens and different things, and hearing, this guy that I watched on a foundation, just his life and how we were so close, how he was so inviting, how he allowed people to just spend time with him, and I think that was huge for Chad, and just hearing that, and walking to the hotel across the street, and then just wanted to be so close, and it was just really, really phenomenal. Everyone made me feel so welcome that first year, and then my second year, I traveled with my wife and my 3 boys. And I'm like, hey, you got to come and see. You got to see what I was able to see here, and it was just really phenomenal, just to experience body life, to see how, we really are a worldwide ministry. But, and I think what happened was you got to see the covering of being in a small church and being covered by such amazing people from all across the world, knowing that they're praying for you, that they're thinking about you. And I think that the second year was even more remarkable. Wow. Of, Pastor Schaller, this guy that's in charge of all of our ministry, and just he knew my name. Wow. And it's I was only here once, I only been in the church at that time for less than a year, and he remembered me, the second year. So it's just really incredible.
You know, it's true. The intimacy of a small church is real and is powerful. Then on degrees of magnitude of growth, some kind of way, either that gets lost or people click off, well, we're all Patriot fans, whatever, and that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But like what you're saying, someone that, we've got pastors from Nepal, from Cambodia, from Thailand, from India, from England, in the Nordic countries, Finland, Sweden. And you think, like these folks are thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
Like, how is it that I'm getting this connection with them?
Yeah.
And there's some kind of way they got into my soul, because I hear their name, a face comes up, or vice versa. And suddenly I'm realizing that, my life is not limited to my own little personal experience with God.
Yeah.
And I got to have that. But I've got this incredible horizontal that is, it's like, I need it,
Yeah.
I need it. And so that's kind of, that in June, Keith. Yeah,
yes,
amen.
Yes.
We're going to have the convention.
Yeah,
Didn't have it last year. Okay, didn't it?
It's coming. It's coming.
You're not going to do this. And so here we are at the EuroCon in America.
Yes, okay. My first
too. I mean, this is all historical, and but it's just so good. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank
your
you.
Heart and life. And
thank you for inviting me. Just a real privilege to do life and ministry with you and with Greater Grace World Outreach. It's definitely a privilege.
Wow. Yeah. That's how we think. Okay. Thank you so much for being with you. And there's a service tonight at 7 p.m. Okay. You can get that at ggwo.org. Everything is live streamed. And so if you can't make it down here in person, be sure to catch it online. Until next time, thank you so much for being